How's it going, New York Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Welcome back to Fireside Giants. If you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe, my friends. Daily content, training camp updates, and so much more as we break down some clips and everything. And today we're going to take a look at the three standout players for camp. There's a couple guys that are standing out. We wanted to focus in on three guys specifically. Actually more like four, because Anthony has one that I don't have, and I have one that he doesn't have. So definitely interesting there. But I'm really excited to talk about these three players. There's some really good quality performances coming out of Giants camp that we can really harp on and talk about, and projections for the 2022 season. Before we dive into the good stuff, Anthony, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's been a great training camp for the Giants so far. A lot of standouts, as you mentioned. I've got one that you don't have. You have one that I don't have. And our list is going to look pretty much the same otherwise, because I texted Alex. I was like, here's my three standouts. And he was like, I mean, they're the same except for this one guy. So I think these two of the players that we're going to discuss, everyone is going to have listed as a standout because they've just been tearing it up that much at training camp, which is something you always love to see early on in training camp. The summer, it gets kicked off at training camp. You're heading into preseason, and there's a couple guys that just they're getting you so excited for the season. And a couple of these players that we're going to mention have me really, really excited for what's to come. So I'm excited to dive into it and discuss, Alex.
Absolutely. So let's dive into the first one here. And if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to scatter some clips throughout so you can get an idea of what they've been accomplishing during camp. But I want to start off with the first one that Anthony, we'll go with the first two, and then we'll save the best ones for last in terms of just the differences, and we have different players there. So let's start off with Wandel Robinson. Wandel Robinson, rookie out of Kentucky. He has had a awesome training camp up to this point, with Sterling Shepard missing, I guess, probably the projected first few games of the regular season after coming off that Achilles tear. I expect Robinson to be heavily incorporated into this offensive system. Being that he was drafted from Joe Schoen, Shane, and also Brian Dable, he is a guy that they want to get incorporated. He is a long-term playmaker for this team. Kenny Golladay will probably be gone in 2 years. Kadarius Toney, I think, will be here for quite a bit of time, and Sterling Shepard's probably gone after this season as well. So Wandel Robinson is a focal point. I think that he is going to make a big impact. He's very underrated right now in terms of production, and I think he's going to be a lot more impactful than people seem to believe. And Anthony, you may have a differing perspective on that, but so far, he's really made some really nice catches. He's been active in the red zone, had a couple of really nice catches in the red zone there, 4 touchdowns, and he showcased good hands, really good abilities in yards after catch scenarios and just in the open field. And I'll read you off a couple of quotes after, Anthony, you give me your take on Wandel and how he's been performing this year, or rather a training camp.
Yeah, I think he's been performing way above expectations at training camp. Of course, the Giants drafted him in the second round, so he should have high expectations going in, but not everybody was totally bought in on Wandel Robinson, thought it was a bit of a confusing pick, maybe not a great value pick for the Giants in the second round, but so far, he's looking like at least a second-round prospect, right? He's just tearing it up at Giants camp, lining up against the ones and just going to work, going to town, and he looks really, really impressive. Now, I'm still maybe not sold that he's going to lead the Giants in receiving yards like you are, Alex. I'm still on the Toney train. My name is Toney, so I got a little bit of a bias for Kadarius Toney, but I'm on the Kadarius Toney hype train. I think that he's got a good shot at being the leading receiver in receiving yards. But with Wandel Robinson, he's so special for the Giants because they can use him in such a multitude of ways. As you mentioned, if he's filling in on the outside for Sterling Shepard, he can be used in that case and have a lot of different opportunities to get the ball on the outside. But he's also very used to being a gadget player, right? He's been used as a gadget player at Kentucky, and he was lined up in the backfield in Kentucky. He's done that at Giants camp so far. He's lined up in the slot. They've really lined him up everywhere. He's a very versatile player. We've seen him get some red zone targets, score a lot of touchdowns so far through training camp. He's really just beating all of the cornerbacks no matter what. He's playing much better than everybody. So I'm super excited for Wandel Robinson. I'm starting to buy into this hype train and really get on board with Wandel. And I think that he's just had such an impressive training camp.
He really is, and they've been trying to get a little more creative with the way that they're devising these plays and concepts that they want to roll out into the regular season at some point. We saw Kadarius Toney in the Wildcat formation alongside Saquon, alongside Wandel. That is unique, right? Like, we have not seen that. We broke down a play yesterday, if you missed our video, where Wandel Robinson starts on the right side of the line of scrimmage, or rather, he starts on the left, he goes to the right, then goes back to the left, and he draws Julian Love and I think who was the other guy that he drew out of position? It was Julian Love, definitely. Was it Blake Martinez?
Aaron Robinson came all the way out of position.
And Julian Love.
Julian Love came out of position, and a little bit on the edge rusher on the opposite side. I think it was Jahad Ward.
Right. Okay. So yeah, he took two defensive backs out of position with the motion, the pre-snap motion, which we've been talking about as a catalyst for success in modern NFL schemes. And he took those guys out. Aaron Robinson travels across the entire field, so he's completely out of the play. Julian Love gets distracted and ends up being stuck behind a couple of blockers while Saquon Barkley runs an outside zone run around the edge and breaks off for a huge gain, which might have been a touchdown in a real life scenario. So you can see just that little bit of motion can impact multiple different players and just shift guys a couple of feet out of position, whereas you can get blockers out in front and seal that edge, right? We saw Daniel Bellinger put down a monster block against Kayvon Thibodeau in the run game, and that was awesome to see. We have not seen a tight end block an edge rusher like that in probably years. So that was a really good takeaway from yesterday's clip. But Wandel Robinson, that little bit of pre-snap motion, I expect him to be extremely active in that fast set. But here's a quote from him yesterday in an interview with the New York Post. He said, I think it can be pretty exciting regarding the kind of Wildcat, him in the backfield type of stuff. We'll see the stuff that they come up with. And whenever game time comes, I'm sure you will all be happy to see it. Last year with not Nebraska, but Kentucky, he actually put together 1,342 yards and 7 touchdowns as a receiver, but he primarily played running back for Nebraska his first 2 seasons. And then he shifted over. So we can play out of the backfield. They can use him at running back. They can use him at receiver. He is a versatile piece. And he has another quote that I really liked. He said, this is the type of offense you would want to be in as a receiver. They give you a lot of flexibility on running your routes, just allowing you to make plays and get open. That's a big one because yesterday we saw Darius Slayton run a little hook route, and then he said, oh crap, you know what? Let me extend this play. He actually ends up running a crosser on a secondary route where Tyrod Taylor actually floats it over the defensive back and they get a huge gain and a first down. We did not see that in Jason Garrett's scheme. They would sit down there and they would stand there and not move for like 30 seconds while Daniel Jones ran around in the backfield and had nobody open. So, and then he would throw into these bunches of receivers, these guys that are all 5 yards away from each other, and it was easily intercepted. Now you have guys actually moving, allowing the quarterback to be more creative and make plays. Wandel Robinson is going to play a monster part in activating that portion of the game. Those secondary routes, the extra effort. I just see him as a reliable source of production, manufactured yardage after the catch. I think he's going to be an asset to this offense. I could totally see him leading the team in yards. I think you're right. I think Kadarius Toney probably will, but I would not be surprised if he led the team in yards. And I also think he might lead the team in receptions because I think that they're going to feed him frequently because he can do a lot out of the backfield too. Kadarius Toney, good on the jet sweeps, good on the end arounds. But they're not going to line up Kadarius Toney in the backfield that often, I would imagine. Wandale, he can do that. You get him on those screen passes. I mean, you can just get so creative with these guys. It's going to be really fun to watch how flexible and the different things they come up with to keep opposing defenses on their toes.
For sure. And, I like to compare Kadarius Toney's skill set, not his talent level, but his skill set to that of Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers. But you can make the same comparison in terms of skill set with Wandel Robinson as well. Those guys all do a lot of similar things. They're like Swiss Army knives. They can line up in the backfield. They can line up out wide in the slot. They can take handoffs. They get involved on the pre-snap motion and suck defenders away from the play, all that kind of stuff. But now you take a look at the 49ers with Deebo Samuel and how that offense works and how electric it is when he's at the top of his game. But the Giants have 2 players that have that Deebo Samuel type impact, right? That can be used in the pre-snap motion, move a whole cornerback, safety, and linebacker trio out of the play. They've got 2 players that can do that, and they have 2 players that can line up anywhere on the field at any of these skill positions. So it just makes it even more exciting. And I know when Wandel Robinson was drafted, there was like a lot of discussion from people, not from us, but from people that maybe the Giants are going to trade Kadarius Toney. But I think what really is going to happen here is all the little things that Kadarius Toney can do, like lining up in the backfield, like lining up in different ways and, getting a lot of manufactured touches. Maybe they'd rather just have Kadarius Toney be a wide receiver and play a more traditional role with the versatility that he has, maybe scale back the versatility and hand those plays off to Wandale Robinson. Because maybe they feel like he's even better suited for that more versatile gadget player role. And now you're just going to see a more refined wide receiver in Kadarius Toney. That's definitely something to take a look at. I think that those two are going to balance off of each other really well, make each other better. And I'm really excited to not only see the breakout of Kadarius Toney this upcoming season, but to see the emergence of Wandale Robinson hitting the scene as a rookie. I think there's a lot of excitement to be had from those 2 players, especially as they play together. And I really love everything that they bring to the football field and how creative Mike Kafka and Brian Dable can get with those 2 players in their offense.
Yeah, creativity seems to be the like catalyst word of the day. Creativity is something that we have not seen. I mean, we've had 3 consecutive offensive coordinators that I didn't even think have brains, like straight up just mush. Like it's just disgusting, like mashed potato brains. We're talking about Ben McAdoo, who refused to run anything but a slant for all of his players. That all we saw was slant, 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 slant. Pat Shermer, which was the best of the bunch, and still we had a bottom tier offense. And Daniel Jones had 24 touchdown passes, but also 19 fumbles. That was more on DJ's and then it was on Shermer's. And that actually season we had the 16th ranked offensive line in pass pro, so it wasn't the worst of the bunch that we've had the past couple of seasons. And then we had Jason Garrett, who they found behind a Burger King, up homeless or something. I don't even know where they picked this guy up. Dallas didn't even want him. They were like, we definitely don't want him as our coordinator, let alone our head coach. So we learned a valuable lesson in terms of Jason Garrett. Which I don't know where he's at now, but hopefully doing better than he was with the Giants. And now we have, the brain trusts of Kansas City and Buffalo Bills, and 2 of the most analytically driven, modernized offenses in football. So we have to imagine we're going to see a better offense this year just based on the scheme alone. The scheme is such an important factor, obviously. Just that factor alone is going to produce more points and hopefully more production. The discipline will be better and just manufacturing production there. So I'll tell you what, the next player on our list, we'll stick. I have actually a defensive one. I think, Anthony, you agree with me on this. Darnay Holmes. Darnay Holmes has been awesome. He has been awesome, awesome, awesome for this Giants team in training camp. The first 3 days of training camp, he had interceptions. One of them was an awesome pick 6 off a screen pass that he sniffed out. He's looked great, right? Starting nickel corner, he's projected to earn that role at this point in time. There's nobody really competing with him. Cordell Flott is competing on the outside right now with the second team. There's nobody else that he has to really compete and battle out. Maybe, I guess Cordell Flott really is his only competition right now. Julian Love's got the starting strong safety role kind of locked down, if I had to guess. Robinson is on the onside. They need Darnay to step up and have a big one. And he's been awesome. He said recently to NorthJersey.com, I'm at a place now where I feel that I'm back and my mind is at ease. I'm grounded as a player and we're grounded as a team. We're ready to take those steps forward as needed, ready to see what is next. So the last couple of years, they've just kind of ignored him. They drafted him out of UCLA. He was a boundary corner, a leader on their defense. He's always been a high effort guy. Brian Walker, our friend at D-backs Academy, continuously says he could play on the outside and that he's a tremendous player. He's showcased that, right? He's locked guys down the past few days. And I think that's a really good sign that he's going to take a big step forward if he can remain healthy. He's really good instincts. He picked off Patrick Mahomes last year, but it got erased because of I think it was a penalty on the defensive line. So, we've seen what he can do. He makes plays. I'm really hoping that he can lock down that nickel spot and show us some quality play and really, become our long-term starter there, because that would be a great sign for this defense. He's also feisty, man. He can play the run well as well. So excited about Darnay Holmes. What are your thoughts about him?
I'm all in on Darnay Holmes. I've been super impressed with him throughout training camp. I've been impressed with him in the regular seasons beforehand. I thought that as a rookie, he was solid, had a lot of room to grow. Sophomore season, had more room to grow still, but was just improving. And I think we've seen huge improvements in training camp this year because he's been a good practice player. We've seen him have good training camps before, been good in practice in the past, but not really at this level. I mean, Darnay Holmes opened up training camp forcing a turnover 4 days in a row. That's impressive. That's like not normal. You don't even see all pros competing against their own teammates at practice doing that kind of stuff. So that's really great to see, just that he's a playmaker, right? He's a playmaker over at Giants practice. We're hoping that translates into the regular season because, yes, absolutely, Darnay Holmes should be the starting slot cornerback. He deserves to be, absolutely. Hard worker who's put in all the time and effort, and now he's here really turning heads and impressing at training camp. That is Darnay Holmes' position, in my opinion. I can't wait to see what he does in preseason, just to see him do it against some different competition rather than doing it against Daniel Jones and the Giants offense. But I really think that it's going to translate to the regular season. Do I think he's going to have a turnover in 4 straight weeks? Probably not. That's not very realistic, but I do think he's going to continue to be a playmaker and at least a solid, serviceable slot cornerback, and hopefully he can be above average and really lock down that position long-term, as Alex just mentioned. I really like what Darnay Holmes brings to the table. I like that he's also got a little bit of versatility, some flexibility. He can play inside, and one day I hope that he gets an opportunity to play outside his natural position. I think that he could succeed there as well, but right now I have a feeling that he's going to be a very solid slot cornerback for the Giants. I'm thrilled with the way that he's been performing during training camp, and again, can't wait to see it translate to the regular season.
Absolutely. I think this aggressive defense is going to be so much fun to watch. It's just going to be totally different all in all. So let's get over to our third players here. These are the two that we have differences on. Mine is Andrew Thomas. I mean, he's had probably the best camp so far. I think it's worthwhile talking about him. And you have Shane Lemieux, I believe, right? Okay. So
Yes,
Shane
sir.
Lemieux and
Shane
Andrew
Lemieux.
Thomas. Okay, cool. So two offensive linemen, obviously very different. One of them being, I guess you could say, borderline proven in Andrew Thomas. One great year. He's looked really good so far this camp. Has shut down Kayvon Thibodeau, has done a great job. And, the biggest thing about Andrew Thomas, his biggest weakness was getting beat inside, right? He had a lot of trouble getting beat inside during his rookie season a couple times last year. What he's done so far in camp, what I saw, from what I've seen in the clips in 1v1 situations, he locks in that inside and he waits until that final moment to figure out whether that guy's going to dart inside or not. And then he opens up his hips and mirrors pass rushers. It was, we'll fill the clip in so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But I'll tell you what, his growth and development has been just a godsend for this Giants team. Locking down the blind side for Daniel Jones and whoever our quarterback is in the future is a huge benefit. And he's a first round pick, so we can also extend him on that 5th-year option as well. So we have 3 more seasons of cost control play for Andrew Thomas before we got to extend him or let him go. Ankle injury seems to have dissipated. He seems like perfectly healthy and ready to go. So that's a great sign. Recently, he said, honestly, I think our whole offensive line, we have some talented guys. It's just day one. So right now we're trying to build that unity because that's being an offensive line. But Evan's a very talented kid. Talking about Evan Neal, physical freak, you know what I'm saying? So he gets it down. He's going to be pretty damn good. Evan Neal has had some issues in pass pro, but obviously looks great in run blocking. And I think it's just going to take some experience. He just needs reps at the end of the day. Not worried about him. But Andrew Thomas has looked great so far. Only gave up 2 sacks last year, 18 pressures after giving up 10 sacks as a rookie. I think he's in line for a Pro Bowl season in 2022, and he's showcasing that quality against Kayvon Thibodeau in this defensive line early in camp.
Yeah, Pro Bowl in line. I really hope so. I hope that he elevates his game to that level. I think he can. I think Andrew Thomas is establishing himself as one of the better offensive tackles in the NFL. And I do think he's going to have a huge year 3 up in 2022. It's not that I have, gripes with Andrew Thomas. Don't think that he's standing out at camp. I just want to touch on Shane Lemieux because I think he's standing out just a bit more. I think that everything Andrew Thomas is doing against Kayvon Thibodeau and the edge rushers, he's looking great. And I'm super excited to have a blindside protector for Daniel Jones this year, or maybe Tyrod Taylor if you're not a Daniel Jones believer. But talking about the left guard / center position, Shane Lemieux's name just keeps coming up because we were heading into the summer and we were saying there's going to be a position battle at left guard. There's going to be a camp battle. Can't wait for training camp to see who wins the left guard position. Joshua Zedu was drafted with the 67th overall pick. That's pretty high to draft an offensive lineman. And, usually if you draft an offensive lineman in the 3rd round, you're hoping that at least one day they pan out and become a starter. So the hope was that maybe Joshua Zedu walks in the camp and beats up Shane Lemieux and tries to really push him for that starting left guard job. So far, though, Shane Lemieux has that thing cemented. He has it locked in. And it's impressive because he's playing really well. He's earned it so far throughout training camp. And not only that, but they had him move over to center in John Feliciano's absence, and he looked good enough to start at that position as well. So there's a lot going on at Giants camp right now with Shane Lemieux. He's not only dominating at the left guard spot, clearly the best candidate for the starting job, but he also looks like he could arguably be the best candidate for the starting center job. And at the very least, I don't think he's going to be the starting center. I think John Feliciano is going to lock in that position, keep Shane Lemieux at his natural left guard position. But considering he's never played center before, stepped over to that position, put his hand on the ball, and looked great, that's really exciting to me, and it just adds to Shane Lemieux's value. I think he really boosted his value this camp because not only is he just a left guard that's like a work in progress, he's a real project right now considering how poor he was in his rookie season, but he's also a player that has versatility now. Before, he was just a left guard. Now he's a left guard, and he's worthy of being the 2nd string center so that if there is an injury to John Feliciano, you can move him over to center, and you can move Joshua Zedu up to the starting left guard position because Zedu's looked pretty good as well. So I think the Giants actually have some decent depth now on their offensive line, which is really refreshing and very exciting. And I think that Shane Lemieux might actually be in store for a huge breakout season, which I know many of you might be kind of surprised to hear me say because I haven't been very high on Shane Lemieux. I've been very critical of him. But this summer, he's really impressed me, and I'm very excited to see Shane Lemieux put the pads on in the preseason and into the regular season and see what he can do in his 3rd season as the starting left guard of the New York Giants.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been watching Josh Azudu, and one thing that I noticed about him is that he has incredibly quick feet. Shane Lemieux, I think, is a little bit more feisty in terms of just that physical nature, being that kind of bully. But Azudu, I think, can be a very good player with a little bit of refinement. Has had some struggles at left tackle, but he's not primarily left tackle. He can be a serviceable one if need be, but obviously Andrew Thomas is your starter there, and hopefully Josh Azudu can make enough of a developmental jump where he can at least contribute in some way at left guard as a rookie, if not steal that job from Shane Lemieux. But honestly, if Azudu locked down left guard and Shane Lemieux ended up starting at center, or even Feliciano at center, whoever wins that battle, I'd be really happy, right? Because it's more about the money and the future for me. I'm thinking about Josh Azudu has 4 years of cost-controlled, cheap-ass play as a 4th-round pick. And then you have, of course, Shane Lemieux has already burned through 2 years. And then, 2 more years of cost control play as a 5th rounder, still cheap, but you're talking 4 years versus 2 years. So we want Azudu to be the long-term solution there because he'll be cheaper for longer. And of course, it just helps the entire offense. Obviously, that dude agrees with me. So it's great to see that people in New York City are just agreeing with these takes about Josh Azudu. Really, thanks to shout out to that massive horn that just blasted outside my window. But yeah, I mean, that kind of rounds out our discussion in terms of Josh Azudu, Shane Lemieux. We'll discuss them in further as we get more clips about them, because I do want to see their growth and development in terms of consistent reps. Like preseasons, we're going to see this offensive line really come together. So I really want to see them both get reps in a couple days here. Obviously, next week we have our first preseason game. So tonight we have Jacksonville and who else is playing? Jacksonville and the Raiders. Who cares about that? I don't have any idea. I just am excited football back. It's a sign, a little inkling that football's on the way. So I'm excited about that. But next week we'll have a lot more film to break down, and we can actually take a look at some sample size of what they've done so far and what they can do for this team moving forward. But guys, I really hope you appreciated. And actually, Anthony, you have any last words? It seems
I do have one last thought. I will say FanFest is tomorrow, so any of the fans that are going to that, have a blast, but we should get some exciting news along with FanFest. Since they're doing a scrimmage, we should get the depth chart, the first unofficial depth chart. So we'll see exactly where Shane Lemieux stands on the depth chart in terms of being the center, the backup center, where Joshua Zedu is. And this is going to be really important because this is crunch time. This is where the roster, the depth chart really starts to take shape with this first scrimmage tomorrow. And then, of course, next week you have the first preseason game. So that's going to be the first official depth chart going into the preseason. And then after that, we know it's going to be cut weeks after each and every week. And then we're going to trim the roster down from 90 to 55 or 53, whatever it is now, by September. So it's going to be really exciting. But again, first unofficial depth chart should be released tomorrow, which I think is going to have some pretty exciting news attached to it.
Absolutely. So if you guys are going to FanFest tomorrow, hope you guys enjoy it. This year we won't be able to make it, but next year for sure we will be there. And then the year is moving forward. So we're going to do a lot more in-person stuff. Maybe we'll do some fun, stuff in the city. If you guys live in New York City, we can come out, do some bar watches and really start to build a community in person and have some fun. So I'm excited about that as always, but hope you guys enjoyed this video of Fireside Giants. Make sure to drop a like and subscription below. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.